In wrestling, you have creative teams, agents, you have wrestlers giving their 2 cents, you have all types of ideas being thrown around, batted around, things that were going to happen got canceled, things that could happen, which would be horrible, things that do happen, and you wonder who thought this was okay. Many ideas. Now, The Undertaker and Kane, if you look at their careers, they really went through a roller coaster before they found those gimmicks that worked. The Undertaker, it wasn't the rockiest of roller coasters, but he's in WCW and they're not really using him well, and he's mean Mark Callis. And then he goes to the WWF and he becomes the Undertaker, and it seemed like instantly from night one it worked. Kane, he was climbing the ranks, and then he had this horrible gimmick and this horrible gimmick, and I think he was Unabomber, and then he was Isaac Yankem, and then he was Fake Diesel, and he was this and that, a million gimmicks, and then he finally gets Kane. And he's another one. Literally, Kane from the debut at Bad Blood 97, literally it worked. These things don't seem to happen where you get a gimmick and it works. I just went through Isaac Yankem. So Undertaker and Kane were gimmicks that worked, and they're legends, and they're iconic characters. Many iterations of them. Not every iteration worked. Good Lord. Let me not go through that. Hit the like button. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. But sometimes in wrestling, a promoter, a writer, a booker, an agent, they think, well, this works so well that we can do anything with the character. No, you can't. Because you do the slightest thing, you will destroy a character. This video is about Kane, right? Okay, think about him. Anywho, matter of fact, speaking of Kane, on this channel, I believe I did Wasted Potential, an episode. It was the unmasking of Kane. How they ruined something that could have been great. Go check out that episode of Kane Unmasked, the unmasking of Kane. If you search that on the channel, it should come up. Tremendous video. Go watch that. But The Undertaker and Kane had worked very successfully for years, and Vince McMahon in WWF/E has always been known as a big man territory. And McMahon kind of basically had a fetish for big men. Insert your own jokes. And even after WCW closed and ECW closed, he still had that. And he may not have capitalized on all the talent he could have got from WCW, but he did have things like OVW, and he did have things like Tough Enough, and he still always had the allure of the big man. And in the early 2000s, a big man who was a very good prospect in Ohio Valley Wrestling was Matt Morgan. Now, I'm not going to go through Matt Morgan's whole career. He is Wasted Potential. Maybe that's a later episode. I don't want to talk about the stupid gimmick they gave him, whatever. I'll talk about that in his Wasted Potential at some point. But Matt Morgan was someone who had great size. He could talk very well. He was well educated. He was a good athlete. He was a fan of wrestling. And he was someone who should have been a top guy in WWE for 15 years. Literally, Matt Morgan, he should be viewed the same way that Cena, Orton, and Batista are viewed. Literally. First of all, he was more talented than Batista. He was a better talker than Orton. He had greater size than Cena. He was a better athlete than Cena was, actually. Literally, Matt Morgan should be seen in that same group. Brock Lesnar, he should be like the fifth man in that group that's talked about as a legend. Literally Wasted Potential in so many ways. But Matt Morgan, he's been out of wrestling for years now. And, for the last many years, whenever he does interviews, he talks about, being in the WWE, and he looked up to Undertaker, he looked up to Kane. I think he said those two were his favorite wrestlers before he got in the company, so on and so forth. And from what I've heard is there was an idea pitched around 2004, 2003, 2004. There was an idea pitched that Matt Morgan would be Undertaker and Kane's third brother. He'd be the third brother of destruction. Now, I don't know how this would have worked. Would they have put him in a mask like Kane? Would they have made him a dark goth supernatural character? Would they have made him their idiot brother with a stutter and overly dyed black hair? I can't really see how this would have worked, and I don't see the audience accepting this. Now, Matt Morgan, like I said, he was a very good talent. Well, literally, he checked every box. But I just don't see the audience accepting Undertaker and Kane have a third brother. Plus, this is the era where the internet is kind of killing wrestling. It's getting exposed. You could look people up. So I don't know how this would have worked. You know, in the invasion, they try to do the thing where Undertaker brings his wife Sarah, and they really were married. But did she really get over like that? She's beating up DDP. It's ridiculous. Even when you get to the 03, 04, 05, Paul Bearer, he wasn't around, but then I think they brought him back around when Undertaker went back to the Dead Man. But then, like, Paul Bearer, he looks so ridiculous doing this goofy Addams Family gimmick in 2004. There's a reason they wrote him off and put him in a cement. What was it? What was that? Oh, God. You talk about worst. You talk about worst storylines. I have a series I started on here called Worst Storylines. I think I did one episode and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. But the next episode might be the Dudleys versus Undertaker in '04. That storyline is horrible. Oh my God. They wrote Paul Bearer off by putting him in a glass box that had cement in it, and then they buried him in cement. But then, like, they had to do camera tricks because they shot the scene earlier in the day, but then they edited in the live pay-per-view, but then the live crowd got a different view. Oh, just terrible. Good Lord. That was horrible. So, I don't see how the Matt Morgan thing would have been good either. I don't know how it went from Matt Morgan as the Undertaker's brother to he stutters. I don't. Oh my God. Even at that time, like when you look at like '04, the giants they had in developmental, besides like Batista and Lesnar, the giants they had after Batista and Lesnar that they were going to bring up were Snitsky, Heidenreich, Nathan Jones, and Matt Morgan. Now, Nathan Jones had great potential. Once again, Nathan Jones, he's another one. He could have been the next legendary giant in wrestling. He just got tired of the business and traveling early and he got the hell out, which makes him smart. Nathan Jones would have been a phenom. He was very green and they brought him up too early. He literally looked like he was about to end somebody's life when they put him on TV in the beginning. He was the definition. He was beyond. He was so green. He was blue. But so they just rushed him and then he got up out of there. And then Snitsky, he was punting babies in the crowd, and then his teeth got dark gold like 5 years later. Heidenreich was R-wording Michael Cole and then reading poems to him. And then Paul Heyman was his manager, and then they put him versus Undertaker. This is just a disaster period. I'm up out of here. This is I got a drink. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to this channel. I'm gone.